Welcome back, Team DWC. What's poppin'? It's your boy TWP Popcorn. Y'all know what time it is. 10 a.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. Saturday, 6 Wednesday. Regular scheduled videos and posts. So, y'all know we're going to be running around chilling. Yeah, that one can close. Alright, y'all know where. Let's see.
TWP popcorn was poppin'. 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 TSMT, T, know they love me, trust me. What a popcorn, it get buttery. Hit that like that shit, subscribe, gonna show some love to me. I'll return the favor right back, it ain't hard to see. Yeah, I got a tenfold, with TSM rap on the intro. TWP on a big mission, with TSM rap is a bit different. Go get you an intro from somebody else and come get one from me, better hit different.
I always thought that popcorn was made from corn like this, but it turns out I was totally wrong. Normal sweet corn is way too soft, even when it's fully dried, and it isn't able to pop. To make popcorn, the kernels need to have much stronger shells, and a completely different type of corn is used. The kernels on this one are way harder, and they kind of feel like uncooked noodles. To pop it, it's apparently exactly the same as regular popcorn, and I can put it in a microwave. I'll put it in for 2.5 minutes, and now I just have to wait. Okay, so now I have a bunch of nice and fresh popcorn. It's pretty good.
Alright, so let's actually get into the video topics before they go too far crazy on me. Bam.
People buy cannabis based on two primary things, which are ridiculous. Strain name, THC percentage. Like, oh shit, that's fire, bro. Like, Girl Scout cookies, 30%, right? Most people buy cannabis in that way. And in reality, because the strain name dilemma is real, and because THC is not an equation of potency, those two pieces of information don't tell you a whole lot. There are only two things that people should be shopping for cannabis for. What's the quality of the product before you put it into your body, and when you put it in your body, what's it gonna do to you? Those are the two things that you should be shopping for, and those don't relate to a strain name or a THC percentage whatsoever, not even a lab test. What you should be looking for is actually pungency. If you can barely smell the cannabis, that means the terpenes have evaporated out of the plant, those living hydrocarbon chains that produce smell molecules that are also psychoactive. And those molecules, terpenes, are actually determining whether your flower is going to be a stimulant or a sedative. Sativa, indica. So if you can smell that your terpenes are raging because they're pungent, you're noticing that they are there. You can detect chemistry with your own face by smelling that it's there. So really stinky ganja is gonna be higher quality if what you're looking for is potency. How much THC is in an herb is the percentage by weight of the herb to the THC. That percentage of THC is not an equation of bioavailability. How much of that is crossing the blood-brain barrier is not dependent on how much is just physically there. Obviously, the more THC is there, the higher potential you have for it to cross the blood-brain barrier. But here's the deal. Let's say you've got an herb that's 20% THC and an herb that is 10% THC. How is it possible that the herb that's 10% THC could get you twice as high? Easy. If the herb that has 20% THC is 3 to 6 months old because it takes that long for a dispensary to sell that amount of weight, then the terpenes that are available in this herb have left the building because they're living hydrocarbon chains in a constant state of evaporation. They're going away. So if your 20% THC herb is older, how many psychoactive molecules are in it compared to an herb that is younger and fresher? So let's say there's a cannabis that has half the amount of THC, 10%. This 10% THC, if it's young, if it's fresh, how do you know? You can smell that pungency in it. That pungency, you're smelling psychoactive molecules, terpenes. And if those terpenes are fresh and you have dozens of fresh psychoactive terpenes that combine with THC and the other cannabinoids, if you have more chemistry that's more psychoactive that you're ingesting, you're gonna get more of an effect from it than ingesting less chemistry. So even though there's twice the amount of THC in this herb than this herb, there's way more psychoactive chemistry in the herb that has less THC. That's why THC is not an equation of potency. CBD is psychoactive. Hemp is psychoactive. The term psychoactive is defined as anything that crosses the blood-brain barrier to modulate brain chemistry in some way. If CBD, phytocannabidiol, didn't absorb in the brain in your CB1 and CB2 receptors and affect your endocannabinoid system the way that it did, it would not be psychoactive. Hemp is psychoactive. CBD is psychoactive. People have to learn that the term psychoactive does not mean intoxicated. Your blood-brain barrier is the filter. You're not supposed to absorb all the chemicals in the world. If you did, you'd probably die. But there are some chemicals that your brain can't absorb that crosses the blood-brain barrier. And cannabinoids are one of them, right? And so are terpenes. How much of this biologic chemistry can my body absorb? That's the equation of bioavailability. How much of this biology is available to me in my body, in my mind? That's what alchemy is. That's why I love cannabis. You're an alchemist when you choose to change yourself and know what chemicals you are using to modulate and change your way of being on purpose. That's like the coolest thing in the world. You know, in the States, the cannabis is mandated for lab testing. I think people assume that your cannabis is safe to smoke because it's been lab tested, right? What most people don't know about lab tested cannabis is there's not a lab in the country that's actually testing for quality. They're only chemotyping. And chemotyping means they're looking for types of chemistry, such as cannabinoids, terpenes, microbials, pesticides. And thank God they're looking for pesticides, right? But Cannabis that is past lab testing still has spider mites on it. Why? Because what lab in the country looks for insects at all? Do labs look for if your cannabis is flushed? Nope. Do they look if your cannabis is ripe? Pre-ripe or post-ripe? Not at all. What's a really common thing that you can just see with your own eyes? Nutrient burn is something easy you can see because you can actually see when your cannabis is physically burned. So if they've got poor trim quality, you can see that not the bud itself, the inflorescence of the cola structure, but the leaf is actually tan because it was burned internally from either chemistry that was too much, like chemistry overdose, like nutrient overdose, or nutrients that were locked out. Looking at old weed is easy because it's a different color, right? Like it's tan. Why is it tan? Because all the chlorophyll has oxidized out of it. You can look at that herb and know that it's over a year old based on just its color alone. And what's really interesting is, can states that have mandated lab testing sell cannabis that's over a year old and disgusting and should not be consumed for humans? Yes. Why? Because cannabis does not have shelf life time. Like there's no regulation for shelf life stability. And I hate to break it to you, but cannabis is not a shelf stable product. It's an herb, right? So your beer, your cheese, your wine, those are all extracts. And those extracts are being preserved in bottles or in wax that are dark colored and in places that aren't in the light, right? So those extracts are being preserved. They're not herbals. Cameraman, how long do you keep your broccoli?
I eat it right away.
Right, you eat it right away, because if you didn't, what would happen to it? It would go bad. The same thing like your herbal cannabis goes bad. How ripe is your cannabis? Is it pre-ripe? Is it post-ripe? Or is it ripe? Cannabis, just like a banana and just like you and me, it has a ripening point. But the cannabis industry has no regulation to cannabis ripeness or shelf life stability. If you have a jeweler's loupe and you know how to use it, we teach you that in the interpreting program and with our interpreting tools, we can show you how to look inside of a flower and determine if the trichomes are full of cannabis chemistry or not. We can tell you how to smell for different funguses like Botrytis cinerea, and the fact that powdery mildew doesn't produce a smell, but you can see it. It's so interesting that people in the cannabis industry believe that powdery mildew is systemic and Botrytis cinerea isn't, when it's actually the opposite. If you're really serious about cannabis quality, detecting the good quality from the bad, you probably want to get into the interpreting program. It's our cannabis sommelier program. We have the first level of cannabis certification online now at trichominstitute.com. That is almost gone, like from society right now, is old school hash. And it's so interesting that we've had old school hash for thousands of years up until basically the early 2000s. And before cannabis was really medicalized, decriminalized, and legalized,
We kept plugging away with the weed deliveries, and we kept meeting different kinds of smokers, like this lady. She's an I'm only creative if I smoke smoker. She believes weed, and only weed, brings out the artist in her.
Would you like to hear some of my poetry?
Not really.
You really should. I have killed. I have helped kill. I have killed part of myself. I cannot change this. I must seek Buddha. I must seek Christ.
You must seek therapy. That's where I would go with that, but that's my own. The MacGyver smoker is a very handy guy to have around, especially when it comes to reefer.
Hey man, we're out of papers.
All right, then get me a toilet paper roll, a corkscrew, and some tin foil.
We don't have a corkscrew.
All right, then get me an avocado, an ice pick, and my snorkel. Trust me, bro, I've made bongs with less. Hurry up.
And then you got your straight up potheads. And you can spot these people by their lack of motivation, mood swings, forgetfulness, and of course, the dreaded low sperm count. I don't know which one of these categories we fall into, but I'll tell you this. We ain't no goddamn potheads. Shit.
Terpenes are highly aromatic, tasty oils that are produced by cannabis alongside cannabinoids like THC and CBD. Though terpenes are being studied closely for potential health benefits, and we have some idea how different terpenes might make you feel, way more research is needed. There are hundreds of terpenes found all over in nature. The cannabis plant produces dozens of them, and a few are especially common in strains today. First, there's myrcene. It's the most abundant terpene in modern commercial cannabis. It smells earthy and herbal like cloves, and is found in mango, lemongrass, and thyme. It's commonly believed that myrcene may promote sleepiness and muscle relaxation, although more research is needed. Then there's caryophyllene, also found in black pepper, cloves, and cinnamon. It gives spicy, musky, pungent aromas to cannabis. Caryophyllene is known to have anti-inflammatory effects through its unique ability to influence the human endocannabinoid system. When you pick up citrusy aromas in cannabis, one thing you might be smelling is limonene. It's also found in lemon rinds, orange rinds, and rosemary. Limonene is commonly believed to provide uplifting effects and is also being studied to see if it helps with anxiety. It has a floral, herbal, and citrusy scent that is also found in nutmeg, tea tree, cumin, and lilacs. While limonene gets credit for citrusy aromas, terpinolene is often the major terpene in citrus-smelling and citrus-tasting strains. Then there's pinene. It's the most common terpene in nature, found in pine needles, basil, dill, and a lot of other herbs. It's not that abundant in cannabis and almost never dominant, but you might know it's there thanks to its strong piney aroma. The next few terpenes are also commonly found in cannabis strains, but are much less likely to be the dominant terpene in any one strain. The wonderfully named linalool is associated with floral aromas and is also found in lavender and birch bark. Linalool is commonly believed to provide calming effects. Humulene has a woody, earthy scent. You'll also find it in the hops used to brew beer. Ocimene has a sweet herbal scent and is also found in peppermint, mangoes, and parsley. For more about terpenes, including which strains you might find them in, we have more videos on Leafly.
Do you use terp pearls in your banger? You got one in your E-rig, you got one in your slurper, maybe a little pill setup or something that spins around when you take your hits. Well, I've been using terp pearls for a few years now and they're really great, but I still get a lot of questions on them. Why do you use them? What do they do? Do I need terp pearls? That kind of stuff. So I figured I'd make this video to help people understand a little bit more about what's going on with the terp pearls. Before I get too deep, don't forget you can buy my shirt on Amazon. I'll have a link in the description. And this conversation came up on my Twitch stream last night, so make sure you follow me on Twitch. I do a smoke sesh after 9 p.m. Eastern, and you might inspire my next video with something you said in chat. Well, I do want to say there's a few different kind of pearls that are pretty common. I've had some really cool glass or borosilicate pearls. Something a little more artsy. I've had some cooler ones. I've used quartz. I've also seen other options. There's ruby and sapphire. You can get ceramic or there's silicon carbide. There's a few options for pearls. I do want to say I personally use quartz. I'll put a link in the description to the actual quartz pearls that I bought recently. I do want to try out some ruby and sapphire soon. I just keep forgetting to buy them. But I don't use glass or borosilicate pearls anymore. I've heard from too many glass blowers that has a lower boiling point and you could end up breathing in boro fumes. So I don't use glass pearls. I typically use quartz pearls, and I almost always do cold starts. I don't torch my nail red hot and then wait to dab. I just ease into the temperature, or I use an E-rig, which does the same thing. Well, terp pearls help with low temp dabs. Back in the day when we were dabbing, you'd put a big old glob on the nail and it would vaporize in 10 or 15 seconds and the whole thing would be gone. But after, years of dabbing, we learned that that's not the best way to do it, and you're burning off all the flavor. Well, when you do a low temp dab, your nail's obviously at a lower temperature. It takes the wax, it takes the concentrate longer to vaporize. So what a terp pearl does, in like the most basic scenario, think of like a Puffco chamber as a cap that makes the air spin. You can put a pearl in there. Or just think of a quartz banger with a pearl and a vortex cap that makes it spin. What happens when it spins is it pushes the oil around. It helps the oil cover more surface area. It prevents it from all pooling up in the corner, essentially. If you use a regular bubble cap with no pearls, sometimes all your dab just ends up in one corner, especially if you have like an unlevel banger or something. It might just all shift to one side. When you have a pearl in there spinning around, it spreads the oil all around, covering as much surface area as it can. It keeps spreading it. It keeps spinning and spreading it. So if it starts to pool up in one area, it gets moved around and flattened out by the pearl, essentially. You get oil on the pearl, which moves around. That helps you get on the sides and the bottom. And it helps you get a better hit overall because you're vaporizing the oil at a more even rate when you're dealing with a lower temperature. If you have it at a hot temperature, it's not going to matter because the dab's going to be gone in just a moment. But at a lower temperature, especially if you have something that retains a lot of heat at a low temperature, you're going to want to move that oil around so you get the best vapor hit. Another thing that I've noticed that terp pearls help with is sometimes, depending on the cap, if you pull hard, you get a sharp burst of air, and sometimes the oil in there, if it's really viscous, will just splash, or it'll start riding up the sides of your banger pretty easily. So having a pearl there mitigates that sharp burst of air sometimes. It can help you prevent splashing and help your oil from flying around. You shouldn't be pulling on your rig very hard. You shouldn't be giving it that sharp burst of air. But if you do it on accident or if somebody else is hitting your piece, they're not going to accidentally suck the wax right into the stem like a lot of people do. So it really helps you get a good quality low temp hit. Certain types of pearls can also retain some of that heat from torching your nail. I don't recommend torching your nail with your pearls in it and waiting and putting your dab in there. If you're doing a hot start dab, I recommend putting your pearls in the same time that you put your concentrate in. That way you don't run the risk of getting your pearls too hot, although some of them can take the heat. So I'm just telling you what I recommend. I typically do cold starts. I have a video on cold starts if you want to learn how to do that. But my nail never really gets too hot. I just basically heat it up to about the right temperature. So I'm not overheating my pearls. I'm not overheating my nail. So I use a lot of terp pearls. There's one in my Puffco. I typically use one or two in my banger. It depends on the size. There's different sizes of terp pearls. If you have a smaller banger, you're going to want smaller ones. If you have a larger banger, you might want larger ones. Some people find preference. Some people like one big one. Some people like two smaller ones in their banger. They're really cheap. You just kind of got to test it out. But I do recommend quartz pearls. I'll put a link in the description to the actual quartz pearls that I bought recently. I got like a bunch of them, so every time I lose them, which is very often, I just have a fresh new one ready to go. I recommend you just buy a bunch of quartz ones rather than going to the head shop and spending 20 bucks on two shitty little glass pearls that you probably shouldn't be using anyway. So the same thing applies when you're using like a slurper. Some of those have either a pearl setup or you may have seen pills or screws. I've seen noodle-shaped glass. That helps move the oil and spread it around so it covers more surface area. If your oil is nice and even spread out all over your banger when your banger's hot, you're going to get it all to vaporize at once instead of it pooling up in the corner and only vaping off some at a time. So if you haven't tried terp pearls, you might be missing out. They're relatively cheap, but if you're not doing low temp dabs right now, you're already missing out. You should switch to low temp dabs, try terp pearls, try cold starts. There's a lot of stuff you could do to improve your dabs. I appreciate you watching, and if you want to see my video on the best way to dab, check this out. You just might be one video away from the best dab.
No, we don't care about the outro callouts on other channels, except for Team DWC. Thank you for watching. That's what's poppin'. What? Y'all ride with me, you know.
Wow, that's Snoop Dogg, the Godfather. I hit that blunt, I'm going to see the father. Damn, Earth was cool. Oh, this gas, 93 octane. God, take me now. Hey, cool it. He got another one sparked already. He being unreasonable. This beyond me. If you think I'm finna hit that blunt again. Heavens, no, I'm high, bucko. I'm puzzled. I'm finna give it right back to him and tell him I hit it 10 times already. I'm finna call 911 and report an attempted murder. He keep passing me blunts. He think we in a relay race. What a bummer. I'm finna put this out, and if he asks why, I'ma tell him I'm allergic to marijuana. Weed for me stand for with each exhale, I'm about to die. He gotta knock it off. I done already took 2 blunts. He done sparked a 3rd one. Smoke monster. I'm finna play sleep. I'm comatose. Big fella, you took that blunt to the head? Now you finna be in the nearest hospital bed. This ain't the move. I'm finna scoot. He a different bro.
What's up guys, BGreen91, and in this week's video we're taking a look at terpenes.
Terpenes are essential oils in plants that cause the smell and flavors and are not only responsible for the wide variety of aromas and tastes in your cannabis, but terpenes also assist with the effect. More than 100 terpenes have been found in marijuana, such as limonene, mycrene, alpha-pinene. Terpenes work with cannabis plants during the growth cycle to provide natural protection from bacteria, fungus, bugs, and other natural stresses. Terpenes work with the body in a number of ways by acting on receptors and neurotransmitters in the brain. Certain terpenes help the brain and body absorb THC and other cannabinoids more efficiently. They can also act as serotonin uptake inhibitors, providing the brain with feel-good chemicals and making you nice and happy. Terpenes like alpha-pinene have shown to be bronchodilators, assisting lung function and helping you breathe better. Terpenes are an extremely important part of how cannabis affects a person and should be an important part of the conversation like THC and CBD when you're considering cannabis products. Terpenes are found in the resin of cannabis and many other plants such as pine trees, hops, blueberries. They're used in perfumes, body washes, food. Almost anything with the natural flavor or smell has terpenes in it. Terpenes are extracted from the plant material by steam distillation or vaporization. They do this by taking the raw plant material and placing it into a distiller, steaming the cannabis while the condensation is collected by a condensing tube where it's liquidized, and then it goes through a refining process to produce a pure terpene. You can drip it directly onto your bud to add more flavor and smell. You can dip your dabs into it. I used it to make vape pen cartridges and oils. People generally use terpenes to add more flavor to their cannabis products or reintroduce flavor to products such as distillate or isolate, but many are starting to catch on to terpenes' ability to really tailor your cannabis experience to your personal wants by using certain terps to achieve certain effects, such as limonene for an uplifting and energizing effect, or pinene for a relaxing and sedative feeling.
Next week's video I will be going over individual terpenes, limonene, alpha-pinene, mycrene, beta-carotene. We will be talking about what those are, what they smell like, what strains you can find them in. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, please share it on your social.
Busy. Wow, that's getting busy. No, I look handsome. What up? We just hit past 30 minutes. That's what's poppin'. I ain't gonna hold y'all up too much longer today. You know, we don't stop at the trap houses. Show off numbers. Twerking in the green room video from yesterday. yesterday. Doing good. Doing good. There's a couple private ones here y'all don't normally get to see, but y'all know the regular ones on here that are public. We got our Canon reviews, Team GWC support,